scblueretailcenters.com or call 855-382-BLUE. As we bring in Langston Moore. Langston, what's the weather like there in Clemson this evening?
It's definitely not as overcast as we predicted to be earlier. I thought there was going to be a bunch of rain and cold a little bit, but the sun is setting over here on the western part of this Memorial Stadium, and it turns out to be a nice wintry fall night, good night for football.
Langston, you have been in this series as a former Gamecock, of course, went on to the NFL from there. Talk about your personal experience, the intensity of this rivalry.
Well, this rivalry is definitely intense, and this is something that you see kind of penciled in. You kind of take it for granted that you think everybody gets to be in something this heated. A lot of other rivalries around the country, being in the NFL and talking to guys about their rivalries, and West Virginia versus whomever, or all of those things are cute. But unless you were kind of Ohio State, Michigan, or Clemson, South Carolina, Florida State, something like that, it was kind of you take it for granted how big this rivalry is. And of course, I think this rivalry itself is probably the second longest one going, I think, behind Minnesota and Wisconsin. So, the history is there. The biggest thing for us, talking about specifically Carolina guys, forgetting about, just Palmetto pride. But for us, we just got to even out this series here. And, a few years ago during the Speedy Spurrier era and a couple times, we got our opportunity to really cement ourselves and get a lot of momentum and try to make up a little bit of ground and try to look at a small capsule in time. But since then, on the eve of what could be possibly tonight, it just kind of shows the commitment, how, the guys on this side of the rivalry continue to kind of build, not just only to beat us, but to make sure they look beyond us. And I think where we're in our program, and not taking advantage of the situations that we had with, obviously, Jadeveon Clowney and 11-win seasons, those different things, it kind of just shows the differences in, we're recruiting and being consistent in one area versus kind of our path, and trying to figure all those things out together collectively to figure out, hey, how are we just going to beat these guys at the end of the year, regardless if they're the number 2 team or whatever. It all comes down to recruiting and development of players, and 1 or 2 years off in this series really hurt us, not just from this game standpoint, but from moving up where we want to be in the SEC and contending for that trip to Atlanta every year.
Langston, can the Gamecocks, you know the intensity, we talked about that, and we also know that Jake Bentley in some of the earlier big games has had trouble maintaining composure. Let's talk about that. Gamecocks, how do they maintain their composure?
So many.
Do they believe they can win? And
interception, maybe from the Kentucky game.
Smack talk and swag that's above the norm.
And
play football with intensity without losing your head.
Correct.
Exactly, and probably the Texas A&M game when they and red zone gave it an easy interception.
Nobody wins a football game in the pregame smack talking or none of that stuff. It always comes down to the fundamentals. It's tackling, blocking, eliminating turnovers, making sure you convert first downs. All the things that are not sexy, but win you football games, and that's what Alabama does really well. That's what Georgia does really well. All these different teams. This team we're going to face here in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, it does really, really well. So that's what it's going to come down to. We can smack talk and do all that, but at the end of the game, do we really want to win or just kind of look good losing, doing, the trash talking thing? So it comes back to the fundamentals, kind of having our that mentality where it's going to be an SEC kind of matchup, because this Clemson team is built just similar to an Alabama or an LSU or those teams where they're really strong up front. They're really, really deep on the offense and defensive line. And it's funny just looking through the program, to see the progression of how they kind of made their shift, talking about Clemson, how they made their shift from having a whole bunch of All-Americans or all-conference guys that were always those skill guys. But then you see the last kind of 2 or 3 years, especially the last year, they have a whole bunch of All-Americans, and they're all on the defensive line. Christian Wilkins, all these different dudes. So, again, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Who can control the line of scrimmage? Who can make sure that they don't have any turnovers? And, again, for us, I think our biggest feather in our cap is that we got a guy, Jake Bentley, who's been here before. He's been in this rivalry. He kind of understands the gravity of the situation. And I think a lot more pressure is going to be put on Clemson if we allow ourselves to put the pressure on them by playing well, and that can really affect their true freshman quarterback, because, again, he's supremely talented. But at some point, you kind of look up and look around and say, man, I got to make these plays. And if Carolina's successful at eliminating the run or slowing it down and being so good on third down, which they've been during that 5-game stretch when we did have 5 in a row, those are some of the things I think can lead to us winning the football game tonight, trying to get this young kid in Trevor Lawrence to kind of look like a freshman and not getting any of these Tiger buddies to help him out here.
Langston Moore is on the sideline for this, the Blue Cross Blue Shield sideline. He would love to hear from you on the Verizon Gamecock Game Day phone lines right now. 877-477-7201. It's toll free 877-477-7201. In Columbia, 404-6100. And on Twitter, #CarolinaCalls. You can hit me at BrentJohnson88. Verizon, proud to partner with the University of South Carolina. One family, different unlimited plans. Now go mix and match. VerizonWireless.com. Standing by with a special guest right now is Brad Muller. Brad?
Welcome back. Brad Muller joined by Dr. Barry Feldman with Palmetto Health USC Medical Group, Department of Cardiology. And Dr. Feldman is chief of the Division of Cardiology and the program director of the Palmetto Health USC Cardiology Fellowship Program. Appreciate you joining us here today. Tell us some of the simple steps we can take to help ensure a healthy heart.
Thank you for inviting me. There are 5 major risk factors we have for cardiovascular disease. Some of the things you can't modify, such as your genetics, but there are some things that you can change as far as your healthy lifestyle. If we could recommend that people work towards smoking cessation, good sleep, where they get good quality sleep every night, exercise, and a prudent diet, those would be the most important features that we would have to